Sahana vavatu Sahana bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Lord protect us. May He nourish us. May we acquire the capacity to study and understand the scriptures. May our study be brilliant and may we not cavil at each other. Om, peace, peace, peace unto us all. Dear brothers and sisters, loving Sai Ram to all of you. We welcome all of you to the online satsang of the Sri Sathya Sai Baba Center of Arcadia. So we are continuing our discussions on the study circle on Unity is Divinity. And we are starting on page 61 today. And we are continuing the discourse of Swami given on the January 1st of 2003 on the occasion of New Year's. So we'll be in the middle of the discourse. I will give you the brief highlights of what we have discussed in the last 2 weeks. So Swami started the discourse. This is very important. So all of us in life, what we think success or achievement, what do you think scholarship, being knowledgeable, highly educated. Swami says that is not an achievement. And second, you may be powerful like a king. You have overcome kingdoms. Or you may have traveled to various planets like a great scientist. Or you may attain occult powers like siddhis. Or you may even give everything you have in charities, everything. But this is not all great achievement. The real achievement, Swami says, is mastery of the mind and control of the senses. That is, Swami says, master the mind and be a mastermind. That is the important. That is what even Kathopanishad says, Kaschit Dhiraha. Who is the hero? The one who attains the mastery of the mind and senses. So self-conquest. So that is important. We all need to remember. It is good to achieve the success in all these levels, physical, intellectual, and even so-called spiritual powers. The highest is mastering the mind and the senses. In relation to that, Swami says really the power of speech, and we talked about it because this is every day we are involved in speech at various levels, in the family, in the community, in the organization, at our workplace. So speech is a very powerful tool, how you used, how when it is used. That is why for spiritual seekers, the greatest, best language is language of silence. You can't improve on that. So Swami says, silence is the language of a spiritual seeker. Then you have to speak, but we all have to speak. Then Swami said, Satyam bruyat, priyam bruyat. Always tell the truth. And another 3 things we talked about, Lord Krishna said, Anudvegakaram vakyam, Satyam, Priya, Hitam Chayat. This we should all remember. That means don't cause agitation in other people by your words. And always speak the truth, Satyam. And Priyam, even when you say the truth, and you should be soft and sweet, not should be harsh, crude. And you should be Hitam Chayat, Priyam, Hitam. That means you should be helpful to them, for them. Just sake of talking, don't talk and waste their time and our time. So this is another important message Swami gave in the beginning of discourse. These are all practical Vedanta. It is not the highest esoteric truth. Anybody, whether you are versed in Vedas or Upanishads, still you can practice this thing. And third thing is Swami started the discourse. The whole world could be compared to a tree. We gave the example of Purushottama Prapti Yoga, Urdhamolam, Adashakam, Ashwatham, Prahurabhyam, Ashwatha tree. The roots are what? Roots are God. So we should always remember the whole creation, they came from the roots of God. We need to put the water to the roots. That's why we need to focus, whatever we do, never forget the roots, never forget God. So we should think about Him, contemplate about Him, sing His glories, repeat His name, talk about His stories. And that time he said, when you are doing this, sometimes the obstacles come. That is, life is like that, always obstacles and challenges. And he gave the greatest example of the most ancient example, churning the ocean of milk ocean, churning between the negative forces, Danavas and Devas, both demons and demigods. When they churned, first thing came poison, hala, and the Lord Shiva took it. So always whenever doing spiritual practices, obstacles come, negativity. Then comes nice things like came Kalpataru, that wish-fulfilling tree, and the cow, and the Mahalakshmi, the goddess of wealth and prosperity, and finally comes the Amrita, nectar. So they have to wait for all the time. And last week we talked about the example, greatest example of Hanuman. He exemplifies, even though he is the Lord, we call Lord Hanuman, exemplifies a spiritual seeker, how he went in search of the truth, that is like Mother Sita, to find out. On the way, he had all the obstacles. First obstacle is the Sathvik, Mainaka mountain, invited him, why don't you come and rest, just relax a little bit and eat some fruits and then go. He said, no, I am in search of this important work and doing my Lord's work, I won't stop. Then they had Rajasic obstacles, that Surasa, who wanted to eat him, so he vanquished her. Then came the another obstacle, Simhika, this Tamasic, tried to pull him down. Like a lot of people in our life around us, they talk so many negative things, obstacles, they will try to pull us down. But with the strength, the Hanuman, he went through her and he smashed her and killed her. So the tamasic tendencies you need to heal. Finally, whom did he kill? So at the end, when he was about to enter the Lanka, that Lankini, that is, we call Lankini, and also they call Lanka Sri, some people call Lanka Lakshmi, I don't know why they call it. So he encountered with her, and then first she threatened him, then finally she realized, and then she was vanquished by him. And then she said, the Brahma told her that when a monkey comes and can conquer over you, that is the end of these people's regimen of Ravana. So that is the thing. So he doesn't give up till he finds Mother Sita. Similarly, we should never give up. That is why Katha Upanishad again says, Uttishtata Jagrata Prapya Varannibhota. Arise, awake, stop not till the goal is reached. Sometimes you get discouraged, my God, this is nuisance, let it go. He says, don't give up in the middle. So always till we reach the goal, you need to strive. That is called patience, and perseverance is very important, because it's very difficult in spiritual life. That is why it is called Churashadhara, walking on like a razor's edge. Sometimes calm, and then he said, that's why even Bible says dark night of the soul. People just get low. Even Mother Teresa of Calcutta, one time she writes that she went through that. So it happens, but that is the time, hold on. That is why Hanuman, such a great soul, he was discouraged, he was depressed, my God, I am not able to do. And actually, see, at one point he wanted to give up his life, but then suddenly he remembered, I have Lord Rama with me. He had such a faith. So why can't I? Once I have Lord, that is why once we have Swami with us, why fear when we are here? So we need to do our thing, do the best, and leave the rest in His hand. What do you do for that? To please God, you do the service. That is what Swami talked last week. We talked about service, because he said, the hands that serve are holier than the lips that pray. And the best way to love God, Swami says, is love all and serve all. And Swami himself was the example of service from his childhood. I know we know all about the education institutions he started, medical institutions, and the water projects, all that. But even when he was a little boy, when people come, the beggar used to come, they were not from a rich family, but the limited amount of food, so he used to give his share to the people, the needy people, beggars. His mother was upset, hey, you are giving, see, no, I ate. So he used to tell, smell my hand. So even though he really, because he is divine, he showed, and it used to smell of all the nice food, rasam and all those stuff, because his heart was full of compassion. Always he wanted to give. That is what it is, without any fanfare and pomp. I shared you how when he gave water project thing, they wanted to put, and Swami was very much against that. And then these are all like that. Even Lord Krishna, being the Lord, he was, what did he do? What did he want to do at the end of the yajna? He wanted to lift the leaf plates of the guests. And he chose to be the chariot of Arjuna. So, and then that means in those days they described in the war, when you are a charioteer, because you want to say go this way or that way, they put the pressure of their soul's feet on the temples of that person, and so just tell. So this charioteer, this Arjuna has to tell, so you can see how much bruising he had. That kind of, the Lord of the universe takes the small steps to show an example how serve. And even Lord Jesus, he washed the feet of his disciples to see you love each other and serve each other. So they set us the example. He says, my life is my message, and his message is love. So, but in this process of service, Swami says, important thing is what the service you do should be imbued with love. It should be saturated with love, otherwise of no use. With the feeling that you are serving God. That is what last week we taught. Think you are really serving God. It is Manava Seva, is Madhava Seva. That is why we always call, in our organization, we call it Narayan Seva. That is service to God. So that always it should be in the back of mind. Really we are serving God. So this service doesn't not only to be in the food or shelter or water. He said even nice words, encouraging words, a smile, a nice pat on somebody's back, anything which makes somebody happy, that is all service. That is what Swami broadened the scope of service. Every act you do which makes other people happy, it is service. And also he said, second thing we should remember is, hey, I am doing so much service, don't think you are great. Actually, God gave the opportunity. This is for your own good, your own transformation of your heart. Those were two words we need to remember. Narayana Seva, that means we are serving God. Second is Swayam Sevak. We are serving ourselves because we get rid of our ego, that is for our health. So that is the transformation of the heart. But in these two obstacles, we remember one is doership, another is enjoyership. Ahankara and mamakara. These are like the two fangs of a snake with poison. They hurt us. So always pray to Lord. So Lord, you are the doer and the results I give to you. But when you do it with love, automatically those two things will be gone. So main thing is make sure our actions are saturated with love. That is the main thing. Swami says, fill it with love. These are the very profound and very, very important points because they're common about control of mind and senses, about the speech, about the obstacles in our spiritual life, and how to do service and what is really service. So now we will continue from there on page 61.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. Sairam, brothers and sisters, we are starting on page 61, column 1. The page number is in your email or the notice that you have received, with a link also for the study guide. And if anybody has any questions, please put it in Zoom and we'll try to address it at the end. Students, you are under the mistaken notion that you are rendering service to others. You should give up such a feeling. Only then does the service you perform become real service in the strict sense of the term. Service does not merely mean helping others. The best way to love God is to love all and serve all. Your acts of service should be suffused with the spirit of love. Without the positive aspect of love, all service you render becomes negative in nature. All bodies are like bulbs, and love is the main switch. Only when the main switch is pressed will the bodies radiate light and happiness to one and all. You are switching off the main switch and trying to enjoy happiness. It is impossible. Hrid plus daya, compassion, hridaya, heart. Your heart should be filled with compassion. All your activities should be suffused with love. There is no strength superior to love. Our ancient sages and seers used to live in dense forests amidst wild animals. They did not carry any weapons with them, yet they could move about without any sense of fear. What was the source of their courage? They possessed the single weapon of love, which protected them from the wild animals. The ancient culture of Bharat, India, is divine, most precious, wonderful, and blissful. But you are not making any effort to understand its greatness. In fact, you are belittling such a sacred culture. You are deluded by the differences based on caste and culture. In fact, there is only one caste, the caste of humanity. The love that originates in the heart is true religion. The entire humanity is one family. All are brothers and sisters. The whole world is but one mansion. It is impossible to describe in words the happiness you would experience when you develop such broad-mindedness. Hence, make every effort to visualize divinity in humanity. Should we stop?
Yeah.
So in these 3 paragraphs, Swami is continuing in the New Year's discourse to address service. And in particular, he's talking to students here, the students that attended college and the schools in Puttaparthi. It is very important to realize, as Dr. Reddy said at the beginning, before we started, that service has an inner component, and God looks at the inner component. What is the reason or feeling with which you're serving? If we are serving for pomp and show, or we are serving just by doing some work without that feeling of love, then Swami says it is all negative. It does not account. And it's like the fan. If the main switch is off, then the fan will not run. And he's saying so that main switch is love amongst all of us. He's emphasizing the feeling of love because that is God and that is the only connection we have with the entire universe. And this love is God and God is love. So he's again exhorting us to make sure that we are filled with love. And this is not just in thought or word, this is actually in action. This is why Swami says love in action is the main thing. Love in action is the main work that we need to do. And so this love should be the main criteria with which we serve all our service. Sairam.
Yeah, that's what interesting. He said that about fan and switch. So I heard a cute story. Somebody said the fan was not working. So them says, "Hey, this fan is stopped. Just go and start it." So he goes there to the blades and just tries to move. No, put the switch. He says switch is somewhere else and the fan is here. No, switch is there. How can they connect that with that? It is so far. This guy was telling the switch is there. How can you make the fan run? So that is why, no, guy, that the electricity is controlled from there. Similarly, we forget these instruments we have, the body, mind, senses, people. We think they are the doing. Really, the switch behind is love, which is God. That we should always remember. That is why he says, Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rurani Maya. I will make it rotate like a machine operator. That is why Sri Ramakrishna always used to say, Tum yantri my yantra. I am the just a machine, you are the operator. So that is why you are the puppeteer, I am the puppet. So we go on remembering sometimes he pulls the strings how we play the game. So but constantly remember he is the one pushing. That's why I suddenly remembered that story. So the really underlying thing for everything, whether the fan movement, bulb, everything is electricity. So the outside the upadhis are different, but the underlying current is the same. So we need to remember this service. And this service also, as Swami said, this could be tamasic or rajasic or sattvic. Tamasic is where you are just give whatever discarded, you don't something like torn clothes or something which you don't use, something just discarded things which a lot of people give for salvation or could sometimes they may not even work those machines they give. You should think when you are giving, is it useful? That becomes tamasic charity, or even giving stale food, something which is not good. Rajasic charity, you are giving good things, but in a pomp, in the big arranged big meeting, oh, this guy is giving so much money, so much thing. So just for the recognition, name and fame. Sattvic charity, as Swami says, let not your left hand know what your right hand does. That is what Swami was an example. Actually, Swami talked about a lady, an elderly lady in France. He talked in one of the discourses, particularly in the winter, she used to go and nobody noticed that after a long time that she used to go in the dark night, in the early hours of the morning when people were lying on the street with cold, and go there and cover them with blankets. Nobody knew. Then somebody found out and they wrote, this lady is doing this, so what a wonderful service you are doing. So she used to put the blanket with one. I wish God gave me more hands. God gave me so much with so many hands. I'm doing only with two. So I wish God gave me so that I can do. That kind of attitude to be able to serve. That is the thing that passion to serve. That is for our own improvement and our own joy. That's what Swami was talking about. Okay, so you can continue.
God's creation is most wonderful and mysterious. There are innumerable stars in the sky. The light emitted by some of them is yet to reach the earth, in spite of the fact that light travels at a speed of thousands of miles per second. Such being the case, you can very well imagine the distance between earth and stars. When the creation itself is such an infinite and indescribable phenomenon, how mighty and wonderful must the Creator be? The stories of the Lord are most wonderful and sacred in all the three worlds. They are like sickles that cut the creepers of worldly bondage. Telugu poem. The stories of God cannot be described in mere words. Man imagines and describes Him based on his own estimates. Truly speaking, God is beyond all definition. There are various types of pramanas, experiences in this world. They are Pratyaksha pramana, that is direct experience, Anumana pramana, experience based on inference, Dvaita pramana, experience based on duality, and Advaita pramana, experience based on non-duality. As God is beyond all these pramanas, He is known as Aparimeyo, immeasurable and indefinable. God is present in the heart of every man with all his divine powers. The beauty and grandeur of God cannot be described in words. He is extolled as Hiranyagarbhya Namah, salutation to the one with the golden womb. Hiranya means gold. It is present in his heart, just as the essence of the food partaken is supplied to all parts of the body. Likewise, gold permeates his entire body. Hence, he is the most handsome one. He is the primordial basis of all beings. Everything happens according to his will. Since he is the creator of all beings, he is called Prajapati. Since he is the most intelligent one, he is called Dakshinamurti. In this manner, God has infinite names. Man attributes names and forms to God based on his limited understanding and worships him. Nirgunam, Niranjanam, Sanatana, Niketana, Nitya, Suddha, Buddha, Mukta, and Nirmala Sarupinam. That is, God is attributeless, pure, final abode, eternal, unsullied, enlightened, liberated, an embodiment of sacredness. When such a divine principle is present within his own self, why does man consider himself to be small and feeble? He should give up such a feeling of inferiority. there is no greater being than the human being. In fact, divinity is immanent in the entire humanity. But unfortunately, you are considering such a sacred human birth as trivial. As you think, so shall you become. These petty thoughts are the result of your petty mind. Should we stop here?
Yeah, please.
So in this section, Swami is reminding us of the grandeur of God and how to appreciate and worship such grandeur. He starts with creation, which is nothing but nature. He's saying, look at nature. For example, the light you see when you go outside. When you look up at the stars, some of the stars that you see may not exist anymore. They may have disappeared many, many millions of years ago, but their light is still reaching us. And some stars that exist, you may not be able to see them even, because their light has not reached. And light travels as, if I remember right, 186,000 miles per hour. So he's saying, imagine how grand this thing is, and so how more grandeur and more powerful and mighty must be the Creator. So the nature is reminding us of the grandeur of God. But because we are more concerned with worldly affairs and worldly matters, we look at petty things. We don't spend time. To do that, Swami is encouraging us, go inside and reflect upon God. He's also reminding us that we are embodied beings, so we have limits. Our mind has limits. But God has no such limits. No limits in time, space, causation, nothing. So He is beyond science really. Therefore, you cannot measure Him, you cannot evaluate Him, and you cannot even come close to finding out His true nature. In fact, in one discourse, he said that nobody can understand His true nature, even if thousands of them study Swami for 1,000 years. Nobody will understand Him, because He reflects the true Godhead. And so all these attributes that we have are based on our mind, but He's beyond that. So if we imagine Him to be so much more than infinite, then that portion of the infinity is within each person. As in the Gita, Lord Krishna says, Mamaivangsha jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. I am part of you since time began. Part of my divinity is inside all of us. Swami is reminding us, if this divine principle we believe is inside us, then why are we acting like we are small, petty, and we are fighting with each other, and we are engaging in such unsacred deeds? He's saying that your human birth is not trivial, it is a sacred, and it is very hard to get that. So give all that up and let us focus on our real true nature. And that path is the path of love. Sairam.
Sairam. Yeah, so one thing we should remember the scriptures say is, Jantunam Narajanma Durlabham. The greatest gift is to be born as a human being. As is said in the scriptures, there are 8.4 million species of beings, and the pinnacle of creation is human birth. Why? Through human birth, you can attain the highest state, whereas mukti, liberation itself. That is why even the demigods, after you do some austerities, you will go to heaven, you become a demigod like Indra. But they said in, Lord Krishna says in Gita, Kshine punye martyaloka vishanti. So once your punya is gone, like it's going to nice resort place for vacation, once you finish your time or your money and thing, you have to come back to your home. Similarly, once you finish your punyam, you have to come back and be born as human being. So make the best use of human birth. So that is what. But what is it? So we should think it is so valuable. At the same time, we should be humble compared to the galaxies. That is what Swami is telling. So this is only one universe. There are many universes. In these universes, Earth is one. In the Earth, there is one continent. In that, there is one country. So you should think, don't be too egoistic, I'm great. In that sense of thinking about the body, mind. But when you think of the Atma, you are the greatest. That is why Swami says, don't think you are little. Yadbhavam tadbhavati. He says, to think you are it is a sin to think you are a sinner. So Brahmavid, Brahmaiva Bhavati, think I am Brahman, I am God. You assert your Godhead. That is what Swami was emphasizing here, how valuable it is. So don't try to trivialize it, but try to make the best use of it. How do you make the best use of it? Swami is here also talking about God is infinite, is something which you cannot comprehend it. That is why the Taittiriya Upanishad says, Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasasaha. God, this infinite reality, is something which cannot be comprehended by mind and expressed by words. It is something to be experienced. That is why Swami says, my love is so great, no one in the earth can understand my reality today or even after thousands of years of inquiry, because God is infinite. That is why it's called aprameya. Prameya means somebody you can measure. Aprameya means you cannot measure him. It is something to be experienced. In everything in the world you can measure, depending on the time, space, length, height, weight, and color and all that. But God is beyond that. That is why he is attributeless, he is formless, beyond name, time, space, and causation. So, but this kind of wonderful attributeless God, Nirguna Nirakara, still you can experience him. How do you experience him? Through worshipping his form and repeating his sweet name. And here he gave a clue about his divine stories. His Bhagavatam. So he says, my stories of the Lord are most wonderful and sacred in all the three worlds. That is what Lord Krishna says in Gita, Machitta Madgata Prana Bodhayantak Parasparam Khadayantaschamam Nityam Tushyanticha Ramanticha. What do my devotees do? The Katha. My Katha means my stories. They always talk about my stories. Talking about my stories, they are very, very happy. Machitta, that means they keep their mind in me. Madgata Prana, their whole life and mind and soul, everything is in me. They think about this. People go into rapture thinking about Lord Krishna, Lord Rama, Sai. So Machitta Madgata Prana. So keep their heart and soul in me. Bodhayantak Parasparam. They talk about my stories. Like we all, whenever we get together, we talk about his story. Bodhayantak Parasparam. Kathayantaschamam Nitya. My stories. Why do they do that? Tushyanticha Ramanticha. Talking about my stories, which we all experience that. We are so happy. Tushyanti, I mean, they are very content. They are Ramanticha, they are blissful. So the source to experience these highs is talking about the stories of the Lord. That is why even Bhagavatam, that is what the mainly stories of the devotees, Tava Kathamrutam Tapta Jivanam Kavi Bhiriditam Kalmashapham. Lord, your Kathamrutam, it is not just Katha, it is Amrutam. That means your nectarine story, Tapta Jivanam, this body, this life, which is full of so many agitations, troubles, and challenges, just that itself is like a balm, like a panacea for all our ills. So you should think about the story. That is why this Parikshit, we all know the stories. He heard the stories of the Lord Krishna, the Bhagavatam, just for 1 week. So that is the thing, he had the solution and he was liberated. So just listening to the stories of God itself is a spiritual practice. That's why even Shirdi Baba Swami in his previous avatar used to say, read about my stories. Not only read, tell to each other. When you tell, you get benefited and the other person benefited. The person who is relating the story and person who is listening to the story. It is beneficial to both of us. That is why so many of us, we are always anxious to listen to the stories of God, because during that time we forget everything. That is why Swami here is talking about also Hanuman. We talked about Hanuman. So one of the qualities is Vidyavan Guni Ati Chatur Ramakaja Kariveko Atur Prabhu Charitra Suniveko Rasya. Prabhu Charitra, he always wants to hear the stories of Lord Rama. Whenever he says Prabhu Charitra Suniveko Rasya, you want to listen, oh my God, I want to hear more of Lord That is why they say, Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtanam Tatra Tatra Kutamastaka. Wherever the stories of Lord Rama are being sung or related, so he is there in his form, on his knees and sitting there and listening to the stories. That is what the power of listening to the stories of God. Then you forget everything. I can relate to you the story. This is one of the senior devotees from India. He is no more. Mr. V. Srinivasan, he was the All India President. He came to New York to visit one of the other devotees. So G.V. Subbarao, you might have heard about him. So he was working in the United Nations that time, and he was in the apartment. So both of them met after. So when you meet, what happens? You talk about Swami's story, Swami's story. So they were both talking, and then suddenly they realized he had to catch a flight from New York airport to go to Chicago. He realized, my God, I just, we were talking, time went up, and he will miss the flight, because you know how the New York traffic is. Then he was so much worried. I was praying, Sai Ram, Sai Ram. Anyway, I was talking about your Swami, please help me. Then he took the elevator. So it has to go, and he has to go down. Instead of going down the elevator, it went up. Already I am late, and this elevator is going up. It went to the penthouse. I got what to do. And then when the elevator door opens, some air pilots, they were dressed, and they got into the elevator. So then he was worried, oh, I have to catch this flight, we have to do, I know we'll miss. Don't worry, sir, we are the pilots for that plane, so don't worry. So then he says how, talking about, it saved him. So then they went, and then he caught the flight, because he was with them who were really flying the plane and guards. How, just one way you forget about everything when you're talking about God, and how he sees that. So that is the wonder about when you talk about the blissful stories of God. That is itself is a spiritual practice. That is what Baba used to say. So that is how we experience bliss. So because the God who is beyond attributes and names, it is not easy to experience. So the best ways is talking about him, talking about his glory. Most importantly, practice what he teaches us.